Hello everyone, I am Fela Anikulapo-Kuti and you are welcome to another episode of the SNC Podcast, a show helping you better understand the intriguing world of music, arts and entertainment through insightful conversations with African artists, creatives, lawyers, music and business executives. We are down to our final episode of 2022. This interview has been in the works for quite some time and I am glad that I was able to make it happen. Closing us out is Kunle Anikulapo-Kuti, an engineer, entrepreneur, and manager of Kalakuta Museum. You may know it as the former home of the legendary musician and activist Fela Anikulapo-Kuti. I spoke to him about running the museum, the intersection of education, politics, and history in Nigeria, the infamous Kalakuta Republic raids, and tips for African musicians looking to create a legacy. I hope you enjoy it. And of course, thank you so much for making our year amazing. Merry Christmas and happy holidays in advance. Hello, sir.
Hello.
Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
How are you doing?
Very fine. And you?
I'm good. I'm glad that you are here because this has been a long time coming. And most importantly, as I was setting up, I was speaking to you about politics, about life, about food and all of that. So I'm just so happy to have you here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
So before we came on, you were talking about, you actually said so yourself that this is your first podcast.
Yeah.
And that too, you consider yourself a quiet/shy person.
True.
What was it like growing up in your family that you ended up being the quiet one?
Okay, I'm the only child from my mom, and she overprotected me from a whole lot of stuff. Like, when you're trying to guide the egg, like you shouldn't have a crack. So that, I would say, contributed to me being extremely shy and, a bit laid back.
Okay, that makes sense. So you're one of those Ajabota kids who their parents didn't want to suffer.
Not really. Well, I suffered growing up. If I have to talk about the raids in Kalakuta, police brutality and everything, so it was major.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
When you think of those moments or those experiences as a child, I mean, this may sound like a stupid question, but do you look back at those moments as partly historical and partly from a perspective of sadness? Do you get what I mean? Like, this was something that I was a part of. It's a part of Nigeria's history, my father's history as well. And also just looking back at it as like, this was such a sad moment in my personal life.
Yeah, it's both historical and a sad moment too, because up to now, as an adult, I still don't understand why you want to arrest someone and you come in hundreds harmed with someone that doesn't have a knife, talk less of a gun. You know what I mean? And you guys are coming in hundreds. Can you imagine a whole truck filled with police people coming for only you? And when they come, they beat up everybody. Ransack the whole building, destroy stuff. Like, where's Fela? And they get him, they take him away. Like, what did this dude do to you guys? Is it wrong to say the truth or what?
And as a child, how did you ever respond? Did you go and hide, or were you always like telling the people to leave our father alone?
Most times, as a child, the women, he had 27 wives. The announcement when they're around is you see cannons of tear gas flying everywhere and there's smoke, tear gas everywhere. So I always try to reach out for me, like, just get me to safety first. Then it's crazy after that. It's sad that, I grew up, seeing all those things. It was like a part of my life. The raids, I can't erase it from my memory. Sometimes I sit down and I have tears in my eyes, like, man, this country. And nothing has changed. You don't have a voice. You say the right thing, they come for you.
That's exactly why I said, is the way you look at it is a part historical and part, like you said,
It is historical because you can't write Fela and the Kuti family away from the history of Nigeria. What my grandmother stood for, how she fought. She one of the people that even negotiated independence for Nigeria. But I think, that came too early, but it is what it is.
Yeah, I have no words because I can't even imagine what that experience was like for you. I don't know, whenever I think of the experiences that certain families have gone through in this country, I don't know, I wonder how, I feel like life goes on, but sometimes I wonder how they
are able to stay patriotic sometimes when you look at what they've gone through, you know? So just kind of moving on, you talked about, your family and your mother shielding you like an egg, not wanting anything to happen to you. Just looking at your career, because when I was doing my research, I saw that you're a musician. You are also a fashion designer or fashion entrepreneur. Are you a music producer?
Yeah, but to be honest, I don't have any works out there. Just did a lot of research and I put a pause on it because I saw my son showed a lot of interest in music. So I'm just like waiting for him to be done with uni, then we could start working. So we're thinking of a label, a line, a fashion line. Yeah.
Okay. Is this your first or second?
My first son is 18.
That's cool. What does he want? Does he want to become a musician?
Yes. I didn't ask him. He showed so much interest. So I'm like, okay, if he's showing this much interest, the only thing I can do is encourage him. And I told him, so what do you want to do? He wants to study music in uni. I actually wanted him to go to the school Fela went to, but he said no, he would go maybe for his master's, but right now I should just let him, search for whichever school is okay for him.
Why did you want him to go to the school your dad went to?
For them to produce a fella like that, they should know what they're doing. But I think other schools know what they're doing too. Nothing special. It's just
like sentimental reasons.
Yeah.
It's just always interesting to just get that perspective of.
It has to be sentiment.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right.
When I wanted to do music, I had so much challenges. Like it was so bad. A lot of people said no. I would never do music, and it was heartbreaking. They were on my neck. Like, never.
And why was that?
It's just politics, family politics. Then my mom said, listen, you are my only child, please, let go.
So what did you not end up studying?
It's funny, I did courses on IT, I ended up in information technology, and I became a software engineer.
Isn't it interesting that as the quiet child, you are the one who's the manager of Kalakuta Museum? How did that come to be?
I've worked with my dad. I actually worked with my dad as the manager at the shrine before he passed. And when Kalakuta was renovated and turned into a museum, the question was, who will run the museum on behalf of the estate? So we had one or two people that didn't deliver. Then I was called to step in.
Did you have to take any, because your background is in engineering, did you have to take any business courses because you were going to be stepping into the role as the manager of such a historical?
No, I didn't, but I had to navigate my way around everything. Few experience I had working with Fela. I was a store manager as well. Anytime we were on tour in Europe or America.
So you're learning on the job?
On the job, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I wasn't a store manager, I was his road manager.
Difference.
A big mistake, yeah.
Okay, road manager. And what was that experience like for you, just quickly?
Well, working with Fela, you have to be on your game, I would say, like no mistakes.
If you made mistakes, how did he respond to them?
Well, you never want to see him angry. It's not as if he's a bad, mean person, not the way people like
portray him.
You know what I mean? Such a sweet person, but work is work.
Even as a child,
No. Work is work. No exception. Work is work.
That's it. So when you start working with your son, is that how you're going to approach it?
Yes, it has to be work. We're not playing. When we are done with work here, we can have that bond, father and son bond. But when we have to work, we have to put in all we have and the best we can.
I think that's interesting because I feel like, sometimes children, because for you, it didn't seem like that fractured your, how you viewed your dad, because from what you're explaining, that you saw it as, okay, I'm here to work. He's still my father. I'm not here to play games. Mm-hmm. And when I'm not working, he's still my dad. But right now, I'm working for Fela Kuti. Is that how you compartmentalize that thought process?
Yeah, it was just that.
All right. Now, as the manager of Kalakuta Museum, what's a typical day like for you? I feel like a lot of times people ask that question, what's a typical day like for you? But some people, there's no typical day. So on a day-to-day basis, what does your job look like?
I would say there's any typical day because you can't predict the traffic. And again, I don't think we have that museum culture here. People don't really go to museums. Because it's felt like that's why they are so interested, like curious, okay, let's see what this man is about, his history. And funny enough, we have a whole lot of foreigners come more than Nigerians.
I was going to say, I figured that would happen.
So that means they I'm not sure if they know more about Fela than us, you know.
I mean, sometimes maybe it's that whole proverb that a king is never really appreciated in his, home place.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, let's just say we want to encourage Africans and Nigerians to come and start visiting the museum more than foreigners. Can you share a bit about what is in the museum, especially for people that maybe have never even heard about Kalakuta Museum? Can you share what is in the museum and what they can expect when they come to visit?
So what we have in the museum is everything about Fela. It has to do with Fela is personal belongings, family photos, bit of documentaries about him. That's it basically.
You have that as, because I know I visited when you had the I forgot, the name slips my mind. What is
the artwork?
Yeah, but it's an event that you Felaboration.
Yeah.
When you had the event pre-Felaborations, I visited. So not only do you have all of the artifacts there, you also have a rooftop where you have a bar and people can eat, and then you also have a hotel where people can stay. Because I didn't even know that. I didn't know about the hotel. Was that a new addition, or was that always there?
It was always there. It's just the boutique hotels there for people that choose to have like the Kalakuta experience and see what is like staying in Kalakuta. But it's not the real Kalakuta, I'll say, because you don't have all those people there again. Like Fela is not there, his 27 wives are not there, his boys are not there. But, just like, I slept in Kalakuta.
I mean, well, you take what you have now, you take what you have. Now, in terms of the tour guides, how do you decide on the people you want to employ? Because you just mentioned that it seems like foreigners know more about Fela than we do. So when you're looking for tour guides, are you looking for someone who has a vast knowledge of not only Fela but also Afrobeat, or it's someone who I really want to do this job and you now walk them through the history?
Okay, so this is what's up. Most foreigners do their research online before they come. They even tell you what they've read online. So trying to get a tour guide is always a serious issue because, one, you must be a Fela fan. You must know about Fela. You must have. I recommend books to them. Like, listen, you must know about Pan-Africanism, know about what Fela stood for. So you have to read 1 or 2 books. Then you can understand the man Fela, his struggle, and his messages. So when people come and they start to question you, because you won't know who has read books about Fela or any book that has to do with Pan-Africanism, and you can't answer basic questions. They're like, dude.
So has it been easy finding those types of people?
It hasn't been easy. It's been hard. But we have one tour guide that's, has been there for a minute.
Do you feel like the challenge finding these tour guides is connected to the poor education we have in this country?
I think it's part of it because they stopped teaching history, and the new generations leaving school now. I'm not sure the Gen Zs or what they call themselves.
What they call themselves? Please go ahead, sir.
So no information, I'll say, and it's sad. They try to kill history because they are writing a bad history, so they try to kill history now. So the next generation coming won't have the history about the bad things they've done.
But at the same time, do you think that it's not just the responsibility of the government, but us as people to go and seek out information? Because nowadays we're in the era or the society whereby people don't really want to read.
I agree, but at the same time, it's the work of the government. You must educate your people. Why have a generation when you don't teach them history? Then you can tell them that some foreigner came to discover. You're not teaching your own history, and the Westerners won't teach our history. They'll teach what favors them. They pass that information to us. So it's left for our leaders to teach African histories.
Yeah, I mean, no, go ahead.
They have to promote that, really.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you as well. I just feel like living education in the hands of governments is never going to be, because people are the government can choose whatever history they want to put out as truth in the educational curriculum. But then if you have parents who are critical thinkers who tell their kids like, okay, yeah, you learned this in school, but you actually have to go deeper, because nowadays it seems like one of the complaints that we have is that it doesn't seem like a lot of parents take interest in what their kids are being taught in school. It seems like now, and I use Nigeria as an example, it's about children going to schools that have accents. Every child, not every child, that's an exaggeration, but a lot of kids are going to school whereby the priority is on having a foreign accent and learning history from people that are not even Nigerians.
It's the major work of the government. I always say that. I always stand on that. So now, I think they're doing this, for their own benefit. How can you have a country that you're not educating well? So we've been left behind. If you look at Europe and America, in primary schools now, they are teaching them AI. Can we ever get there? And you know how expensive education is in Nigeria. So parents are busy trying to make money. There's no middle class. It's rich and poor. It's either you are rich and have that money to educate your kids, or you are poor struggling. So when you are poor struggling, is what you get that you deal with.
To your point, is like, are we gonna ever get there? It breaks my. I keep on saying I'm not a bleeding heart, but to your point, it's like we're being left behind.
Yes.
Other countries, children in other countries are so far ahead.
Of course.
And we're here fighting about. I don't even know. Is it ballot boxes? Is it irrelevant things that are not even contributing to the future generations? Yeah,
it's where the government has put Nigerians. It's a game plan to keep people's mind down. So if you're not educated, they can easily manipulate for their own benefits. There's a Fela song. My favorite Fela song is "Teacher, Don't Teach Me Nonsense." So there's a part of that song that says that the government should, to my own interpretation and understanding, the government should act like a father and do the right things and educate people.
You're totally right, sir. Do you feel like your father's songs sometimes have dual meanings? Or
It does. It depends on how you digest as an individual. Because I studied music too. I studied classical music too. So I stopped listening to Fela a lot. Because
why is that?
Yeah. When I listen to Fela and I look at the nonsense happening in this country, I'm always heartbroken. Like, this man has been crying for decades and nothing has changed. It's not even getting better. It's like we take 1,000 steps back every day. If I tell you how much we spend on energy at the museum, you won't believe it. We buy diesel like every day. So how can we be in this 2022 and you're wasting so much money on this, where other countries are celebrating 10 years of no power failure or blink? And they are there just, stealing the money. Nothing. They're not doing anything, left to me.
I like how we've gone from a tour guide in Kalakuta, but they're all connected. It's all connected.
It is.
Because
even at the museum, if you're coming to learn about Fela, you cannot escape that politics side of Fela and the activism side too. So they're all interconnected.
They totally are. Collaboration was recently happened in October.
No,
right?
Recently. It happens every year.
When I say recently, I mean it's a yearly event.
Yeah, yearly event,
but the one for 2022 was October.
Yeah.
How was that? Because I know that when I reached out to you then, you were super busy and you said, Shade.
Yeah, it's always a busy time, that October, because normally there's a whole lot of work at the back to make it a success. We start with school debates, symposium, fashion show, arts competition. So to get all these things right, it's serious work. We don't even sleep until it's over. Then we now start with the proper concert, like, artists from everywhere around the world, and it's a whole week, not stop.
In terms of choosing the artists that perform at Collaboration, the committee of people that decide, is it a collection of people that are popular or people that also share the same, that understand what Fela was fighting for, or it's just any artist?
Mostly people that share Fela's ideas too, and upcoming, we like to create a platform for upcoming artists to let them showcase their art, and artists with hits, because people want you
gotta have the hits.
Yeah.
When I look at your father's career and his legacy, it's one of the shining stars on the continent. I mean, you have lawyers and people that manage his estate, and you see that's why we still have Fela being still relevant even in 2022 and beyond. Now, looking at how your father's estate has been managed, even you being the manager of the museum, how has that made you, or has that made you more conscious of how you go about creating a legacy for your children and as an artist?
Okay, so I'm one of the administrators of the estate. It's me, Femi, and Yeni. It's a whole lot of work with the estate lawyer, and it's opened my eyes to a whole lot of things like intellectual property, how to protect and guide it. You see, in Nigeria, I don't think we look in that direction because there's a whole lot of artists here with, I don't know what they sign with their record labels, but Fela is huge, and it's mostly foreigners that actually come for him. So as an administrator, it has opened my eyes. I've learned more on the business of music. It's not, music has its own business too. So I've been exposed to a whole lot of things about music, its business, and intellectual property.
One of the challenges I find, and I spoke to Miss Oyewole, she's one of the lawyers who manages your father's estate. I spoke to her, is that we have this aversion in Nigeria, or maybe in Africa, to wills. But like, I don't want to die, I don't want to.
Everybody will die one day.
Exactly. If I do my will, then, whatever. So again, looking at your father's...
Fela didn't have a will. Mm-hmm. His lawyer, Falana, asked him, won't you write a will? His response, like, you want me to die? Are you praying for me to die? So he never had a will. And I think he did that, he knew what he was doing because he's a smart guy. Left to me, I thought he did the right thing not having a will.
Why'd you say so?
Because if you had a will, there might be a bit of, how do I explain this? Like, not everybody might be happy with the will. For Fela being Fela, so it's like, okay, you guys go deal with it. And his catalog, he had a huge catalog too, and he didn't sell it because he was approached by, was it Motown? Mm-hmm. I said, I can't sell my catalog. So, and I know people sell their catalogs, like the Beatles sold theirs to Michael Jackson, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So that was a smart move, not selling his catalog.
Oh yeah, I mean, I get the point about not having a will and then the family politics and all of that. But I think that sometimes, I think maybe Fela's case is a good outcome. Because sometimes it doesn't really happen with other families, whereby there's so much rancor because one person didn't do a will, and then everybody's fighting about what they own or what they deserve. Whereas if you do a will, then it's easier for everybody to know what's going to go where and who's going to get what.
The problem with wills is that if you don't share equally, then there's going to be a beef.
I mean, but can you ever be equal though with wills?
Yeah, so it depends on the owner of the will. Depends on what he wants. But some kids might not even find it like funny. Like, why did daddy do this? What did I do to him? Like, so it might create enmity among siblings. You know what I mean? Which happens though.
Yeah.
You see brothers in court over wills. I'm like, come on, you guys grew up together.
So is it safe to say you don't have a will?
Me?
Yeah.
I won't have a will because I have 2 kids. And whatever I leave behind belongs to them. I'm not gonna have a will.
Okay.
like my son, the second one, the younger one, he's very outspoken. He likes to challenge me, and anyways he has the opportunity. He likes to engage and challenge me. So. And I write a will that favors his brother. I'm sure he'll come back to my grave like, he calls me by my name.
Are you serious?
Kunle, what do you mean?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I would love to meet. I love that kind of child who's like, very outspoken.
Yeah, if you tell him to go out, it's like, what do you mean don't go out? Are you not going out? What do you mean like? I'm telling you, you're still 10. Say, no, I know I'm young, but I have the right to go out too.
Oh my God. Do you feel like your father's spirit, a lot of it is in your son?
Yeah, because I give them total freedom, like my dad did. He gave everybody freedom, but don't abuse that privilege. My dad has a look. When he gives you that look, you reset your brain.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of times the stories or the perception we have is that Fela was such a very laid-back father who, I guess to your point, he's a laid-back father, but he had his rules, right? So he wasn't gonna...
Who says he's laid-back?
Oh, you see? So please correct me.
It's not laid-back. He's a typical father. I don't know how people see him outside because the government painted him public enemy. So people have a different
perspective
about him. Like, don't go, hemp smoker, this, that, But to me, my next life, I want to have him as a father.
Oh,
because he has a good heart. I'll start with a very beautiful heart and extremely generous. He made sure everybody around him was fine, and we, the kids, will suffer it. Like, you don't worry. Let's deal with these people first. Let's put a smile on everybody's face. Then we'll come back to the family.
That's lovely to hear. Thank you for sharing that about, and because it's true. Like, again, it's one thing because even when someone may see you and not know your your history, your story, because of how you have been painted by either the government or society.
Yeah.
But until you get to actually hear people who know the person directly, or you get to actually speak to the person one-on-one, then you say, oh, okay, this person is not what or who I thought that person is going to be.
Yeah, that's why you say you don't judge a book by its cover.
Totally.
Yeah, you need to know that person first, then you decide.
Now, final question before we go on to the fun random questions is, being an administrator of a famous musician's estate, what advice do you have for African artists when it comes to, I mean, you don't believe in wills because you have 2 kids. Well, what advice do you have for African artists when it comes to creating a legacy?
Well, there are Afrobeat artists, right? With the S, and there's Afrobeats.
So we can do both. Can join them together.
Okay.
So if you want to separate them, that's also fine.
We have to anyway, because they're not the same. You see, my advice, if you want to be a successful musician, you must know your craft. If you want to be relevant for a long time, learn an instrument. Be master of your instrument. Learn how to compose, arrange. You have to be a producer anyway, but just have these ideas so you know what you're doing. Most time Fela is in the studio, the producers are going off from what he knows. You put them back on track. Like, listen, no, my music don't sound like that.
Yeah, your father's a genius, so
yeah. You will tell them, no, forget you're a producer. I know what my music sounds like. It's not sounding like that, So you put them back.
Anything else?
Well, if you choose to learn business of music, fine. If you're an artist, you're not a lawyer. You don't know the legal terms and when there's issues, how to, face those challenges. You still need a lawyer. If we could manage our estate, we would, but we need lawyers to put us, on track. All you need is just a good management. Simple. Good management. Know what you're doing. Be dedicated to your work. That's it.
Okay. I'm going to go on to the fun random questions. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. First question is, what is one fun moment that you had with your father that you remember as a child?
Every time was fun with him. Fela for who he is, always been fun being around him. But one fun moment I always remember, because I lived with my mom. So anytime I'm, at Kalakuta spending time, and he knows I'm around, and I go to say hi, and it's like, you don't want to smoke, you boy, take your. I start to laugh every time he does that.
Are you serious?
So you smoke one day, I know.
Did his words come to fruition?
I'm not going to say something.
All right. Second question is, what are 2 of your favorite movies of all time?
One is Scarface, and the second one, I don't know if you know it. It's called Belly.
Yeah, the one with Hype Williams.
Hype Williams, Nas, DMX.
DMX.
Yeah.
Those are good choices.
Yeah.
That's cool. Okay, that's cool. Okay. Third question is, what was the last great book that you read, or good book that you read?
I'm a comic person, right? But books, I'll say Black Man of the Nile. I've just started reading, so I do a lot of IT books.
Then either
normal books, yeah.
Okay.
Because I like to keep informing myself, because I love IT a lot.
Fourth question is, when you look at your life, what are you most proud of?
Okay. I'm proud to be very humble and focused and quiet.
Humble, focused, and quiet.
Yes.
Okay.
And I believe empty drums makes the loudest noise.
I mean, they do. But sometimes, But those are good things that you're proud of. Final question, sir. Final question. Kind of goes back to your father. On a scale of 1 to 10, how strict was your father?
1. He has to be very strict because he had a whole community with him. He's married to 27 women, but apart from that, he had plenty of women working with the organization too. So plus minus, Fela had like 200 people. How do you control 200 people if you're not strict?
I think that's interesting. I love it. Now, as we wrap it up, what do you want to say to Nigerians or Africans to encourage them to come and visit the Kalakuta Museum?
Well, Nigerians should start to dig into history by themselves, since the government has chosen to kill history, I would say. So it's their work now to find their identity, their roots, dig into history more and more, just look into history, that's what I'll say. And the museum is open to the public.
How many days a week? Every day?
No, Monday to Friday, 11 a.m. to 6 p.m.
Okay.
If you choose to learn about the Kuti family, come to Kalakuta Museum. That's the museum dedicated to Fela. Then we have another museum in Abeokuta that is dedicated to the entire Kuti family. So it's your choice. If you're in Lagos, in Abeokuta.
And the one in Abeokuta is the one that was your family home, right? That has not become a museum, right? Thank you so much for your time, sir. Do you have I know you said you're shy, you're quiet, but do you have if people want to keep in touch with you or know what you're doing?
My socials like Instagram, Facebook.
Is what?
Kunle.A.Kuti on Instagram, then Kunle Kuti on Facebook.
Thank you to Kunle Kuti. You can check him out on Instagram at kunle.a.kuti. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a few minutes to rate us on your favorite podcast platform. It helps the podcast get discovered by more people. Thank you so much. This episode is produced, edited, and mixed by Fela Anikulapo-Kuti. The show is powered by Nonconform Productions, and our theme song is by John Akinola. You can check out the podcast on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at TheSNCPodcast. Thank you so much for listening. Merry Christmas and happy holidays in advance.